situation. The other thing is, procedurally, just bear in mind that this street vacation application is separate from your land use approval and planning approval, right? And so I'm hearing a lot of complaints about that. This is slightly different in an isolated process, just FYI. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Greg Taylor. I work for Copper Rock Construction, and I think we've met on several occasions. I want to address multiple things that were discussed earlier tonight, and also take some accountability for the lack of a simple informational letter. I realize now in hindsight that that would have been well received by the parties. As the city attorney pointed out, we don't vacate streets for a living, we build things for a living, and our clients want to build something on the gateway of the town that adds housing and all the other things that are obvious that we've discussed in the past. When we learned that we did go through this formal legal process, we contacted our attorneys who told us this is what we need to do. In this particular case, we had to notify 72 different parties simultaneously within 300 feet of that location. That includes the city, the county, anyone who would be selling cable or Wi-Fi or anything like that within that area, all the property owners within 300 feet, their mortgage companies, and our attorneys who took their advice. They indicated that the most efficient way was to do it the way they've done it before in the past. I've learned my lesson. I now know, because I grew up in a small town as well, that if I ever have to go through this process again, I'll add that letter to the process, because I can appreciate now that I've had an opportunity to meet with the neighborhood and explain our position, hear their thoughts. I'm better informed of their individual positions and their histories within this neighborhood. We held this informational meeting last week once we felt we had a site plan and a plan that was in place, so we could field questions relative to the legal structure. I did receive a phone call from Mr. Beecham. I did speak with him, acknowledge what the status of the situation was as well, and we're certainly prepared to speak with anyone. We've heard from one party after the public meeting. Pam, who spoke earlier, sent me some information. She had previously sent to our attorney regarding the possibility of looking at some of the parking on the south side of the street and looking at some things there to increase the safety and the visibility. We met with roughly 30 people that evening. We were there for about 4 hours. And we planned to be there for 2.5, but we stayed for about 4 hours, answered every question that we possibly could, had our architects there as well. We certainly understand that this is a lifestyle change for anyone in that neighborhood, and we're trying to be good neighbors. We also understand that that entire area, with the exception of one property on Grove, is already zoned R3 multifamily. So that entire neighborhood on the master plan and the master land use plan is designed for this type of development. It's a challenging site because it's triangular, that we have to push everything to the west side of the site to get the maximum depth. We did meet on multiple occasions with the city and with the city's engineer to try to do the best and most responsible development we know to do, and that was recommended for approval. We have actively incorporated multiple comments that the citizenry shared with us last week in our site plan approval, which we're trying to move forward next week on. I just received those edits today. Included a variety of things, including adding an additional sidewalk along Avery and along Grove, so that essentially 3 sides of the site will have public sidewalks. We talked about signage on Avery to prevent parking on that, to protect the homeowners on Avery. Again, we're analyzing Pam's request regarding vacating some or all of the parking on the south side of the street, which we know isn't our decision to make, but it's something that the owners there have explained to us just how pinched some of their driveways are based on just the logistics of their properties that were built, decades before there was the level of traffic that's coming through that end of town. I've looked at the MDOT website and I've noticed that the traffic really hasn't meaningfully moved in several years on that end of town. It's about 5,300 cars per day. That's a lot of traffic. Obviously, if we have 44 apartment units, there will be vehicular traffic there as well. But we pushed all of our exiting and entry off of Main Street, try to make sure that we minimize that. And again, I can't answer rote all the minor changes that we've made to the site plan relative to the conversations that we received. The lawsuit is exactly what is described. As our attorneys describe it, if there is such a thing, this is a friendly lawsuit where we're trying to improve the property and have to go through this legal process. And so that's why we're adhering to it. And again, if anyone's here to take the blame for not sending out the letter, which I now know in hindsight would have been a nice gesture, blame me. Don't blame Cockpot Construction, who's just building this for our clients. I'm the point person on this project. I should have had the foresight to do that. And again, I haven't vacated a street in 20 years, so it's not like I do this on a daily basis. This is a rare situation where we can either build 30 apartment units on one property or vacate a street and build 44 apartment units plus a nice commercial user that can add to the community. The parking ratios that we have for this property are identical to what we've done in other communities. The commercial parking lot that's identified for the restaurant use, as we've described it, that would be used for overflow parking in the evenings, because obviously the restaurant would not be open during the middle of the night or anything like that. The 17 parking spaces on the north side of Main Street that we've asked to be allocated for overflow parking is also something that's been done multiple times in the community, and it was suggested to us that we should approach it in that way. The vacating of the street has been done multiple times in the community. Again, my only regret is that I didn't send out a letter that I now know would have been well received. We thought we were doing it in the proper order based on what our attorneys indicated, and we had this neighborhood meeting as we promised we would during the two-month tabling of our site plan. Obviously, we're continuing to move forward on this. We would appreciate your support on this based on our collective work. From a communication perspective, I openly gave my card to anyone who was interested in taking it at the meeting last week. They have my private email, my private telephone number. They can contact me at any time, and we can answer any questions that they have. We would prefer not to have this further delayed. We're coming in for site plan approval next week. If the council thinks that it would be appropriate for us to share those minor tweaks after we receive the public input, we're happy to do that. We'll send it to the city staff tomorrow with those changes, or bring in a larger plan set or whatever city feels is appropriate so we can genuinely show our neighbors that we heard what they had to say, why we can't just abandon our plans for our clients' sake, because it would be the preferred avenue. We still think we're bringing a responsible, professional product to the community where it's needed in terms of the housing demands for market rate apartments in the community. So again, my open apologies for not sending the letter that I now know in hindsight would have been well received. I thank everyone that came to the meeting we had last week. That was very informative. It helped us understand individual perspectives of everyone. While we can't change everything, we're very open to participate in any discussions with MDOT or any other governmental authority that might have some way to calm the traffic in that neighborhood. I've had mixed success with MDOT in the past, and I know how difficult it is to get anything changed, but we're actively willing to participate, and we'll help underwrite that. So again, we would appreciate that we step through the next phase and that the city support the vacating of a ratio, which again, it has been incorporated to build the best project possible given the geometry and the other characteristics in the neighborhood. And I'll be here tonight to answer any questions that you may have, Cliff.
I have one.
Sure.
You said market rate. Do you have a ballpark what that translates to?
I didn't bring my rental rates for these apartments, but essentially the market rate based on the appraisal that we did and other investigations that we've done through CoStar and other similar real estate services indicates that the approximate rental rate for 1- and 2-bedroom apartments in Lowell is about $1.75 per square foot per month. And so if, I don't have a calculator with me, but if you took a 900 square foot apartment, multiply it times $1.75 per square foot, that would give you the monthly rental rate. And again,
$1,575
thank you.
for a 2-bedroom.
Yeah. So again, those are numbers we invented. Those are numbers that the professionals in the banking community and real estate community have indicated. Now that's an approximate.
Right.
We haven't published any rental rates, and we won't until we're actively.
No, I wasn't looking for exact. I just wanted to know the ballpark.
And again, those are based on comps at other locations within this marketplace.
I mean, I watch across the street here, those apartments are full. You see a sign once in a while that says, and then it's gone.
Yeah, mark to market.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
I think it would be unreasonable to believe that nothing is going to happen on that corner. And I just want to make a comment. You said
No, we
30.
can't. You guys can talk after, but we
Okay,
can't have you
30
go
units.
back and forth during the meeting.
30 units on that corner, while it's not exciting, is better than 44. And if we can put 30 units in without having to vacate Horatio Street, why not entertain that versus the 44? I think it would resolve some of the animosity, some of the pain points that we're talking about tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. You said.
I know I said, but I want to, in all fairness, I did reach out to Copper Rock last week, and Greg and I had a mutual good conversation, and I have nothing against Copper Rock. I'd like to see something going on there. I just still have the issue of the 17 spots on city streets, because in my mind, then you need to allow XYZ to be able to park on the street and et cetera. So in all fairness, he did call me back and we did have a nice conversation. Thank you.
So what are our options here, Jessica?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so, you can consent, obviously that's what's being proposed, that's not at all uncommon for that request to be made because of the large number of defendants that have to be named in each lawsuit. You can choose not to consent, and then you have to file an appearance and contest it. So then you're in a lawsuit. So, just so you know, the court would require them, or will require plaintiffs who are bringing this action to prevent sufficient reasons for seeking the vacation. So they will have the burden of establishing sufficient reasons. Courts are sort of all over the place about what that means, but that burden will be on them. Similarly, anyone who objects is going to have a reasonable objection to it occurring.
So we have to enter a lawsuit and have a reasonable objection to keep something that already belongs to us?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to appear.
That is absurd.
You'd have to appear. That's the way that the Michigan Land Division Act is set up.
So we don't own the street, like you own property.
Well, and I think that was the point in Mike's memo about this isn't like an ordinary piece of property. It's a dedicated public right-of-way. So it's a little bit different than a different parcel that you might own that is not a dedicated public right-of-way.
But if it gets destroyed, we have to pay to fix it.
Well, not if it's vacated.
No, I mean right now,
Yeah.
if there
It's
was
our
road work
responsibility.
that needed to be done on Horatio, we would pay for that.
That
But
is
it's
true.
not our property? I don't know. I'm not coming, I'm not, I
Yeah,
don't mean to
no,
come
I
at you.
get it.
I just think the way it's written is absurd.
Yeah,
Like, I have to
it's not
contend.
it's not a good law. It's not a good law, but this is the process, and it happens all the time in the context of a situation where developers dealing with a platted piece of property that they're trying to divide up. But this is kind of
So our consent,
common procedure.
does it carry any more weight than consent from all the other plaintiffs?
I
Like,
would-
do all the plaintiffs have
They
to
all,
consent or a majority?
everybody named in the lawsuit has a right to contest in a sphere, equal rights.
If they don't contest, I see, if they don't contest within a certain number of days, is it automatically consent?
Well, then they can seek a default judgment. It's not quite the same as consent, as when you all agree on something.
I have a follow-up question. If everybody but is it plaintiffs?
We're just-
No, defendants. If one defendant says no,
Then the case will move forward with regard to that defendant.
but it's
They'll
on
just set it-
hold
Yeah,
until,
they'll set aside any kind of ruling with regard to everybody else, and they'll address, whether it goes to a hearing or whatever, they'll address the proofs put forward by the plaintiff and the remaining defendants. And then the court will make a determination.
Would they weigh standing as the city as a
Address,
defendant?
please, sir.
Craig Fonger, 827 North Washington Street.
Very fine to me.
Do you know if they weigh standing any more differently of an individual resident as opposed to the city?
No, you either have a right to be named as a defendant in this statute under this law, or you don't. So nobody carries any more weight than anybody else, at least not legally.
Thanks, Craig.
Paula Patterson, 906 East Main Street. I just wanted to kind of tag along with that to kind of also explain maybe some other questions that did come up. I think this was actually something that was brought up in the meeting as well. So the current understanding that we have of the process of the approval of this entire build is that it goes to, went to the zoning commission on the mixed use development, which then came to the city council to vote on. And then it goes back to kind of the planning and zoning commission in order to approve the site plans. But there was some question of, because the property was just rezoned under a mixed use, if the planning and zoning commission, once they approve those site plans, if those also come to the city council for approval after that or not. There was some conversation on whether it makes that step back to the city council or whether it actually bypasses the city council because of the mixed use change in the zoning.
So the rezoning permitted what they're proposed by right. The rezoning was made, and so the site plan is now, what they're looking to do is permitted by right under the ordinance. That being said, there will be a site plan hearing. They still have to go through the the process of the site plan review and review the site, and they can make modifications. But the project, it meets the height requirements under the ordinance. Because of the mixed-use ordinance, it allows us to use the street parking for their parking. They're allowed to use 400 feet. That being said, you know, if the planning commission did approve it, that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it can be appealed back to the city council.
It can.
It would have to be another, it would have to be up to another party, correct?
Whoever was denied at that level could appeal back to
Right.
city council for reconsideration.
So what we're saying is if the planning commission denied it, then it could come back to the Copper Rock could then
Like an
come back
appeal.
up.
But what if it's approved? Then we're out of it? Like we're out of the game? Or because I guess there's nobody else with a vested interest, right? Besides Copper Rock. So if it's approved, there's no appeal process. But if it's denied, Copper Rock could appeal it. So we have no say.
It's reconsideration really more than an appeal.
Yeah.
Somebody can always go to the court if they want to and seek some sort of injunctive relief.
After the planning commission says, okay.
What a convoluted process. I'm not.
And just to be clear, this is not that process.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that, just to make sure that we were correct. So it doesn't go back to the city council after the planning commission. Once they approve it, it's all set.
If they approve it.
If
If they approve it, then it's all set.
And that procedure has its own statute that dictates all sorts of public hearings and public meetings, and so we would encourage you all to go to those.
Yes, which are-
Which are already on our schedules.
Gotcha.
But our planning commission is also very good at communicating that, why it meets or why it doesn't meet, what each statute meets. Andy is the best.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Thank you.
Tyler.
Tyler Kent, 280 JL. Maybe a question, just out of curiosity for my own. It kind of mentioned a lot about the master plan and how it's zoned in the master plan. What happens if the master plan has a different zoning division for that area based on public comments? Does that override kind of the process that's going now? I mean, I guess I'm just curious myself how that works, because it's currently in a master plan as this, and then if the master plan comes back with, well, you know, a lot of the residents want something else, then how does that work?
I'm sorry, you're asking if public comments can outweigh an individual determination by the planning commission?
No, he's saying if the public comment causes a change to the master plan, which it doesn't change the zoning previously zoned, right? A master plan is a recommendation, not a...
That, you're right, and it's a forward-looking document.
Yeah.
It's not an ordinance.
It's
No,
not
it's
an
a
ordinance.
suggestion.
It's a
roadmap.
These are things that.
Yeah, and the master plan did call for that area to be mixed use. That was,
Correct. Which I think dictated the zoning. Or
that's
dictated-
what caused the rezone, yes.
But I think if the master plan, which is just currently under development, calls for something different.
It cannot retroactively
Yeah, it can't
change the
retroact.
planning commission's determination.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if this came after the master plan was approved and there was a change in the master plan, then yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right.
So, those are the options. I'm trying to think how far we are in since you received service, Mike. If you had, time to table it or something, if that was...
I don't believe we do, because I believe we got it 2 weeks ago.
But
I believe we got it just after the last council meeting.
this is just me personally, but if there's so much neighborhood pushback and concern and safety concerns as well, and there is already a backup plan for 33 units without a restaurant and without excessive parking, and they are as concerned about the community feedback as they say they are, why are we even talking about vacating Horatio Street? I guess that's a next Monday question.
And the thing
for
is, this is
planning.
a planning commission
Yeah.
jurisdiction. They know far more about it than all of you do right now, right? Probably have talked about this, are gonna talk about it again.
And I wish
And
Marty
so,
was here.
I know, so we're in sort of an awkward position right now, because we don't know what they know and what they don't know. You know, you can do nothing, if you want, you can just decide not to take action on it.
And then what?
Well, I mean, this is gonna play out, you know, they're gonna be waiting, trying to get consent from these 72 different defendants, right?
Now,
It's likely that they will not get consent from all 72 defendants, based on what we've heard tonight.
didn't we hear one of the ladies say that they've hired a lawyer, or there's a group that's hired a lawyer?
So it's very easily feasible that they may not get consent from multiple of the 72.
Right, that's very likely, actually, when you have that many defendants. Yeah. So really, your decision just has to be about whether the city objects or consents to this. And if you know, if you do not consent, then ultimately you'll have to make a choice about entering an appearance in that lawsuit.
Yeah. So, last question, and then I'll leave you alone. About this, I have a whole bunch of questions about other stuff. If we don't consent, that doesn't automatically mean we,
Can never work it out.
no, that
No.
doesn't mean we object. It just means we don't consent.
Well, technically, if you don't consent and you file an appearance, you are.
But if we take no action, I mean at all.
We can't abstain, I
You
don't
can't
believe.
abstain, and that's.
I know that's what you're looking for.
No, you either have to consent, by filing an appearance, you are objecting.
Okay, that's my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't work it out with them later, right? It sounds like they're gonna be trying to work it out with a bunch of other defendants as well, so. You could be a part of that consent judgment, which ultimately might get resolved between the parties. If you want to table it and just wait and see what happens,
Well, if we don't vote, isn't that an,
I don't think it's a vote, right? We're consenting or objecting as an
Basically,
individual,
yeah.
correct?
as an individual,
The city as an individual is one of the 77.
Yes.
exactly, you're
That's
just
what
one
we're
defendant.
deciding, do we want to contest or not?
Right, because under many circumstances, the city would consent. I'm just gonna be honest with you, because
Yeah.
it's, you know, because if not, you're headed in the other direction.
Well, didn't we do it with that lot between the last place in New Union?
Yeah. well,
They had to file a lawsuit
Right.
against us, and
Exactly.
we had to do it over here too,
Right, so
right?
we agreed to consent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, both of these, we didn't even know were streets. This has
Right.
a house with, I think a duplex, right? And then another
Yeah,
one.
and someone lives there too.
So,
I'm in favor of not, of consenting, because other people are not consenting already, and let them,
well, do you want to make a motion on consent and we'll vote on it?
is that, or,
Or no, is that a bad idea?
well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, we're gonna, someone's gonna have to make a motion either way. But if you have any doubts whatsoever, I would either table it or vote to file an appearance.
Can I ask more questions?
Every time is the last time.
I know, you keep on bringing things up.
I'm sorry.
So,
What's your address?
I live in Lowell. I don't want my house taken tonight. If you don't consent, I mean, do you feel like you have to have a lawyer present representing you, or you just go, nope, well, I know that, but if you feel like my guess is some of these 72 are gonna say, we don't consent, and they're gonna show up themselves and not pay for a lawyer, or do you have to have a lawyer show up with you?
It would be inadvisable to just
I
get,
know
allow,
it's inadvisable, but
to let.
I don't, I would never
Lawyers
recommend that.
No, I just hold the phone, okay? You've spoken 3 times. Okay, so it would be very inadvisable to let the city get a default judgment against them. So, bad idea. All we would have to do is file an appearance and make sure that your interests are represented, or that we keep an eye on things as it goes down the path while others, litigate it. So I would not advise that you do nothing.
Right, but we do have to have cause, right, to keep the street, you're saying?
You have to have
Or
a reasonable basis for your objection.
Okay.
Now, let me give you an example.
Citizens don't want you to.
Let's say and that's kind of all over the map, just so you know, but one reasonable objection would be, let's say this was the only access to a public lake where people could get through. There are court opinions where the courts have held, well, that's reasonable. So that's an example of what might be a reasonable objection. It sounds like a lot of the
Or a
neighbors
mobile.
use this. So. We can deal with it later, yeah.
Yes, I know.
Well, I was just going to kind of comment off of his question about would you have to hire an attorney? And it doesn't sound, it sounds generally like, the answer is technically no, but to your point, if you don't file in a particular fashion, if you don't answer in the correct form and the correct format with the right types of responses, then your response does get pitched. So people can't just, check a box and say, I don't consent and send it back. You really do have to hire somebody. So on the community side of things, they really do have to hire and pay somebody. They can't just say they don't consent and return it. So I just wanted to, comment on that.
That is true.
Because it's not something that's just quick and easy for people to do.
Right, you have to file an appearance. Yeah, and there's a way to do that. It's not that complicated, but you would want to file an appearance and make sure the court knew who to send the notices to and so forth. And
That would be you in our case?
yeah, and make sure that knows what's going on. We just keep an eye on it until it works itself through the court system. And you don't have to take it beyond that, but I would recommend that you at least file an appearance so you get notices and stuff if you're not going to consent.
I am going to,
No, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to object and file an appearance.
I'll support. Any other discussion?
I didn't hear the full thing that she asked.
I'll object, and then we would file an appearance.
Okay.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Sue?
Councilmember Groves,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
and Councilmember Yankovic.
No.
All right.
Okay, well, I'll file an appearance and I'll make sure you guys, keep you apprised of what's going on with the other defendants.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Something hopefully significantly easier, Brian?
I got you.
Cascade repair, waiting patiently. Yeah.
Why are we fixing things in Cascade? It says right there, I don't get it.
This is a motion to steal it from them.
Oh, bring it here. I assume you guys saw your memo, the outfall cascade at the wastewater plant is in need of some repair. The concrete is crumbling. There's a couple pictures in your memo there. It's to the point where it needs some attention. It's in the budget for this year, so I'm looking to do some repairs, not in Cascade, to the Cascade.
Gotcha.
Any questions? Hopefully it's pretty straight.
This is a budgeted item.
It's just a budget.
And the Gelsman quote beats the budget.
What's that?
The Gelsman quote beats the budget.
Correct.
All right.
What is coal tar? Is that where you line the inside of that?
Yeah, it's like a waterproofing
And it's
type.
not necessary, because I see
It's-
big.
I will work with him on that because it may not have to be coal tar.
Okay,
There's other products.
okay.
When the plant was built, most of the tanks were covered in coal tar epoxy. That was 30-some odd years ago.
Yeah.
There's other coatings since then. So
That's
I'll
all.
work through that with
That's the only thing that stuck out to me where it was.
All right. How about a motion for the Gelsman concrete bid for $47,000?
I'll make that motion.
I'll support because it's for Lowell.
Any discussion? Sue?
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
and Councilmember Groves.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Board and commission reports, Cliff?
Be quiet.
Jim?
I have none at this point.
Leah?
All mine are upcoming.
Mine too. Jim, I'm doing Light and Power for You the 12th.
That's
Tuesday.
correct.
Okay. All right. Get ready, Perry, because I'm coming to your board this time. Mike, city manager report.
Yeah, a couple items. The storm, obviously, we've kind of addressed it. Our staff, Light and Power, did an excellent job in dealing with that event. The state of Michigan did declare Kent County in their state of emergency declaration. We've not gotten formal information as to what that's going to entail reimbursement-wise. My initial conversation with Matt Grossler from Kent County Emergency Management, that would probably just be overtime, but that can, because Light and Power and the city, that overtime could be considered together for it. We obviously we did generate overtime during the event, but not to the extent that Light and Power did. We've had to go out and we've had to remove some trees, and so there was a cost to that. So we don't know if we receive reimbursement on that as well. But I should hear something here in the next couple of days on that. And then the Grindle and Shepherd project, it is moving along. One of the issues, originally when they first went out, the plan was to mill both Grindle and Shepherd at the same time and then work their way that way. Well, when they went out and started milling Shepherd, it was causing damage to their equipment because of the large amount of cobble in the road. So they field adjusted it, and so what they've done is they're working on Shepherd first, and then granted they'd already milled part of Grindle, but they'll complete Shepherd first, and then they will do Grindle, and shouldn't have any impact to the time. The time deadline, I believe, is September 23rd. It still should meet that date. So, but it is moving along, and that's all I have.
Monroe is on.
Yeah, Monroe is still on pace. They're moving along pretty good. The gravel base is down. I do have to find out with them that the next phase is they do need to go into the parking lot and do the connects. I don't know exactly when they're planning on doing that, so hope to have an answer in the next couple of days on that.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for Mike? No movement on the appointments, council comments? RG?
No, I have not.
Good. Jim?
Like everybody said earlier, Lowell and Power, DPW, fire, police, the work they did there in this storm, and even when we don't have storms, they still do an outstanding job being very proactive and keeping the community safe. So that's all I got.
I appreciate the city cleaning up a large portion of our roof. Seriously, at our building, we lost a third of the roof, and it blew. There's little pieces of it all over the street. It was everywhere. Just, yeah. So hats off to DPW for cleaning up my mess.
To piggyback on DPW and Lane Power, because they're fantastic. The fire department was out all night too. Last number I think I saw was 59 or 60 calls in a window. And these are people that are also getting up to go to work the next day or missing work to stay and help. So as grateful as I am for Light and Power, and I am, and for the DPW, I think that they sometimes get forgotten about in events like this. And then to piggyback off what Eric started to say about Light and Power, because you do save a ton of money. When Steve was here, he used to have a spreadsheet for me. He showed me how much I saved, and then I got Central Air and I blew those savings out the window. Charlie loves me, so. But the most important thing is, and you can pick up a phone and you can talk to somebody that's here, right? You don't have to hit 1 to talk to billing, and you don't have to hit 2 to talk to whatever, and you can call and talk directly to Megan or Charlie, or Ryan or whoever you want to talk to. And I think that provides value too. So when we're talking about reliability and progression and savings, cost savings, you can throw that personal touch in there too when you're talking. Jim?
My main concern, I'm going to say something quick to that about the community again. It's been going on for years about that low light powers. I just wish that would kind of just go away, at least from my perspective. sitting on the council, that's something I would never even think about approving, just for that.
Yeah.
With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:29.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion?
Perry, anything to add?
No, stay here.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
All right.